Hey y'all, Ramsey here. This is a continuation of our trip out west, the Great American Western Tour for the Ramsey family. And we are now in Yellowstone National Park, which means I think I'm in Wyoming. So far today I've been in Idaho, Montana, and now Wyoming. So we are on our way up to Mystic Falls, I believe is what it is. So, take a trip of that. The trail looks like any other trail except there's no hardwoods. It's all these bristlecone pines. Alright, we'll show you the falls when we get there. Thanks for joining again. If you just tuned in and you hadn't been on the other tour so far, I'll leave a card up here in the top for the first tour of our trip, and that was Glacier National Park. And you can go click on that and go check that out and then come back or continue on. Alright, here they go. Okay, so this area was all part of the big Yellowstone burn back 10 or 15 years ago. Can't remember what it was. I just remember it growing up. And there was a lot of debate about whether they should have stopped it when it was small. So some folks said, hey, the BLM and the Forest Service blew it by not trying to contain it. And of course their way of thinking is, we're here to manage the land and this is natural. It was started by lightning, not by a campfire. So nature will come back. Well, this was all burned out and none of these trees were here. And you can see what's left of them falling down. And nature has indeed come back. So, pretty awesome how nature just recycles itself. And you can tell all the trees are really young, even the ones high up on the hills there, because everything burned. So this is a pretty awesome gorge going up here to the falls now. So this was our biggest waterfall yet of the trip. The terrain was not that difficult, probably about 5 miles out and back. Went right along the creek, saw a couple little tiny hot springs coming out of the sides of the hill and everything, so that was really interesting. And saw some small chipmunks and a little bit of wildlife like that, and nothing of the large variety, but the waterfall was gorgeous, and it was just a really good beginning trip to go and start out our trip through Yellowstone. Alright, we're on the Lower Falls Trail now. This is the largest waterfall in Yosemite, and this trail drops in 3/8 of a mile, 600 something feet. And that is the sucker that we're going to. A lot of volume coming across that. Alright. Alright, so while we're on this trail, one of the things I thought I'd mention is that Yellowstone is called the crown of the continent. Can anybody guess why? I'll give you a second, leave a comment. Okay. The reason it's called the crown of the continent is because there's actually 3 continental divides in Yellowstone National Park. There's a continental divide that is the where all the water flows into the Pacific. There's the continental divide where the water flows into the Atlantic eventually, and there's the continental divide where the water flows north to Hudson Bay. So 3 continental divides in one place. Only place in the US of A where that occurs. So that's pretty cool. If you want switchbacks, this is the place to come to. Some of these folks need to get on the AT who built these switchbacks and add some. Let's see if Miss Ramdino can tell me what all these are. We've been over this before. on a hike. So let's see. Honey, what do you call all these little things that are going on right now? What do you call them?
Switchbacks.
All right, you did not disappoint. Great job, honey, great job. So Yosemite has a Grand Canyon and a huge freaking falls. That is a tremendous amount of water flowing over there. This was an even larger waterfall, our second one. It was Lower Falls, and it was in the southern part down of Yellowstone, down around the Yellowstone Canyon. So it was very remarkable. Saw it from several different perspectives. This is from Artist Point, what it's called, and you've probably seen several pictures and artist renderings of this view. All right, y'all, we are back, day 2 in Yellowstone National Park. We are in Mid-Geyser Basin. This is the Grand Prismatic Spring we're walking past, and gonna give you a panorama. The place is smoking, that's what I'm saying, smoking hot. But we're on the trail to, what's the name of the falls? Berry Falls, and we're going to take a little detour and do the Prismatic Spring overlook, show you a photo of that, and then we'll go on to Berry Falls. Day 2 Yellowstone. All right, see you at the top. Well, we've been walking on like really flat terrain, like no terrain. So I'm like thinking, how the heck are we going to have a waterfall anywhere? And booyah, there it is. Pretty good one too. But right here at this escarpment, or right here at the edge of the caldera where it collapsed. So that's a pretty cool waterfall. We've seen as many waterfalls here as we have. I mean, it's so big I can't even get the whole, oh, I can. Give you focus. We've seen as many waterfall here in Yellowstone as geysers. You know, that's the thing about geysers is, I mean, they're all different, but you start seeing one pool of hot water, they kind of start looking alike after a while, but all the waterfalls are different. So, anyhow, pretty cool waterfall. That's our reward for the 4-mile round trip. That and skeeters, they are bad here and merciless. So I don't know if you can hear me or not, but it's really like something off a movie set. But then you got this really cool waterfall, and you look around, you're looking in the back country, and you got all these geysers or hot springs that are smoking all over the place. That if you got in the back country, it'd be really cool. This was our last falls here at Yellowstone, and you know, it wasn't a tumultuous big flow waterfall, wasn't the tallest, but you could get to the bottom of it and see it, and I actually crawled right over to it, so that was cool. And then after this we went and we had seen a lot of hot pools. So you know, I made the comment earlier about, you know, after you've seen your 40th hot pool, they start kind of all looking alike, but they're all majestic in their own way. Even we went to the Grand Prismatic, I couldn't even see. I wear glasses, so they were fogging up big time. But the Grand Prismatic was just very beautiful and gorgeous. And this is shot from an overlook that we hiked up to the way to Fairy Falls. And so again, all of the hot pools and the formations there that are made by the geothermals are, this is up at Mammoth Springs up at the northern end of the falls. But they're all so varied and all so different, and it was just remarkable to see things like Old Faithful, and here we see it erupting. I am in Yellowstone, and you guys are just gonna have to get used to the fact there's a lot of folks here. This is not a wilderness experience by any means, but it is an experience in and of itself of creation. And this is one of the many geyser pools we come to, more or less, not necessarily a geyser, but it is I guess a hot spring they call it. There's a geyser here that erupts, but anyway, once again we have clear water. Wow, that's just like blue, and the blue, they say the different types of colors come from bacteria, not from minerals that live in superheated stuff. So anyway, there you go, Sapphire Pool. Well, I just asked the guy what time this geyser went off. He said he didn't speak English, and that was literally 10 seconds after I got it out of my mouth. So this is Jewel Geyser. It's pretty impressive. I hope somebody's taking a picture. Guess not.
We're enjoying the view.
Oh, okay. My bad. All right, so we are in Norris Geyser Basin. So by geysers, they're not geysers like you think of, like Old Faithful stuff. They only erupt, some of them only erupt every so often, every years, and they don't really have a particular schedule, but there must be 40 geysers or 40 hot pools down here. One of the most remarkable things about Yellowstone is the diversity of terrain. I can only imagine what the first explorers felt like when they came to this land, and it was hard to get to because it's surrounded on three sides by almost impenetrable mountains. So, but you look out across the geyser basins and you see geysers in the distance coming up there in the backcountry that you have to hike to get there. You know, a lot of geysers you can drive to, but others you can't. But they've created these wastelands, and then these other formations like these basalt columns that are hexagonal, perfectly 8-sided hexagonal columns there that are in pieces. And you know, of course, I had to climb to the top of it with my son Chance, and kind of like steps and stuff, and pick your way around it. And you know, occasionally earthquakes, whatever, makes them fall off in pieces, so they used to protrude further out into the land. But then you've just got these majestic views that you see where man's had to create a roadway, which kind of erodes from the view, but still majestic in its own right when you look through these canyons and these slot canyons where the road goes through. And then you have these these meadows and these plains where the wildlife is. You know, you can spot lots of buffalo and elk that we did. Only thing we didn't see was a moose, unfortunately, of the wildlife there, that the big ones we wanted to see. But you know, you have these majestic mountains there that are still covered in snow. You know, we were there in the end of June, and they still had snow on the peaks, so it was just awesome to see that. And then you come up on Yellowstone Lake. So you've just got everything from dry areas to this huge lake out there, and even the lake has hot springs that come up in it, that when it ices over in the winter, there are ponds that don't ice over because of the hot water coming up. And as I said before, you have the crown of the continent, where you have this the three continental divides there. One of the things I want to mention was we used the Gypsy app, GPSY, I believe is how you spell it. But it's like having your own onboard tour guide there that gives you all of these places you can go and things you can see, and things that are you know, that most people, you wouldn't even glean just from the brochures that you get. And it kind of prioritizes what you can see. So we did it in 2 days, and we saw all the major stuff with the help of this app. And it was only like $5, but it took us throughout the whole park. So it's very informative. Highly recommend if you're going to do any of the national parks, and Gypsy has stuff for most of the national parks. Highly recommend that you do the Gypsy app.
On average, a lodgepole pine will live to be about 200 years old, unless something else gets it first. After about 200, the tree will die and be more likely to be pushed over by wind, or even knocked over by surrounding similarly aged trees. There's another quality about the lodgepole pine that helps it be the dominant tree here in Yellowstone's forest. Lodgepoles produce pine cones just like other pines. When they open up, the cone has a nut inside, and if everything turns out just right, it might find itself on the ground and able to germinate into a new tree. However, with lodge pines, they produce a small proportion of cones that are coated by a resin that keeps them closed until the resin is deactivated, which is caused by heat, like from fires. It's only when in a fire that these special cones open and the nut or seed is released.
Along with the diversity of terrain is the diversity of wildlife there. So we saw black bears and brown bears and elk and bison and foxes and coyotes and almost everything you could want to see. Most of the animals you're going to see are pretty far off, particularly the buffalo and stuff. But occasionally you do get a pretty up close chance to see a buffalo, and sometimes they're right there on the side of the road, really close, and oftentimes even closer. And they're so used to people that sometimes they'll just come right around the lodges. So here's Angela with an elk, and unfortunately, a lot of them have been trained to come around tourists, like this squirrel here, or this chipmunk rather, and they will bite you, but they've just been trained by other tourists to eat out of their hands. But the whole park is just one giant artist palette waiting to happen. So it was really just, every day was awe-inspiring. Just to see the beauty of nature, the beauty of creation, and what the good Lord created for us. So it definitely is a place that we've got to do everything we can to make sure that we keep it alive for generations after us. Well, folks, that's it. We are done with our tour of Yellowstone, and we're moving on to the Grand Tetons. I'm actually on a section of the CDT right now, and it's not very well marked. I haven't seen hardly any blazes, and there's no signs like there is on the AT that tells you, hey, you're crossing the CDT or anything. So we just kind of had to look on our Net Geo or National Geographic map and find it. But in any case, I didn't want to stick my feet on it and just hike just a couple hundred yards, no biggie, just to say I've done it. Actually, looking at the map, there's a couple places where we went to some waterfalls where we were on it anyway. But in any case, we are heading out of the park now, and we are on our way to the Grand Tetons, and the CDT crosses there through there as well. So may get to step on it one more time. But anyhow, we're gone. Look forward y'all look forward to our trip in the Grand Tetons. Appreciate you joining us for our Yellowstone trip. And as always, appreciate you, and we'll see you out here.